Okay, hey guys. Today for our happy hour video, we are matching Greek gods to the 16 MBTI types.
This was the request. Thanks for the request.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Really good idea.
So we kind of initially used this one page that had a list of like 20, I think. So we'll link that below. But then
Calypso decided that some of them were not perfect matches, so I looked up like more Greek gods than the 20. Just a few.
So we'll see how many matches we get in common. It might not be a lot.
Okay.
So for INTJ, I said Artemis, which is the Greek goddess of hunting. So it seems like, based on the description of her, she really liked privacy and independence, which I feel like is a very NI or just INTJ thing. And she's also like the goddess of like hunting strategy, so to me that seems very TE.
This is where I was like, no, none of these are INTJ. So I put Kronos, the god of time. It just seemed like very, very NI. I don't know further description.
Yeah, NI is very much like projecting into the future.
I do want to say that Kronos is kind of often confused with Zeus's father, which is another Kronos. I think he was like killing his father and sons because like he doesn't want it to be like usurped or something, which is also like really NITE in my mind. It's actually not the same as the god of time, but then a lot of people think that they are the same, and culturally a lot of times they are the same. So yeah, both of those are perhaps INTJ in my mind.
Okay.
Calypso, what a way to start.
No, it's okay. I'm just like, I guess the INTJ who like murders people. Yeah.
All the gods murdered people pretty much.
That's true, actually. Yeah, I was gonna say that at the beginning, that like all of these gods, like they did horrible, horrible things, and it was really hard to find like any positive traits for some of these gods. So not trying to offend any type by like our association. Specifically, moving on to the ENTJ, who I said Hades.
Okay.
God of the underworld. So this is interesting because apparently he really hated people, which I feel like is kind of an NTJ stereotype maybe. But then he also liked collecting all these souls so that he could like have dominance and control over them, which I feel like is more of like a TE dominant thing than an NI thing. But to be fair to ENTJs, apparently Hades was actually like one of the more fair gods out of them all.
Interestingly, I almost put Hades for INFP, but didn't.
Whoa.
I don't know, I just feel like this dejected, misunderstood, like INFP.
Moping.
But anyway, for ENTJ, I put Ares, the god of war. People always describe ENTJ as a field marshal. I feel like TE and SE are the best at real-time tactics, and auxiliary NI shouldn't really get in the way of like war strategy. It's like just enough, but not so much that it cripples you right into inaction. Sorry, oh my gosh, this is so bad.
That's true. INFJ. Okay, yeah, sorry INFJs. This sounds bad, but it's actually good. For INFJ, I put Nemesis, which is the god of, or maybe it's goddess. Oh, I don't remember. Anyways, god or goddess of retribution and revenge. But basically what this god would do would ensure that there is like equilibrium of emotions and human affairs. So I feel like it's kind of like this NI foresight, or like overseeing that like everything makes sense and everything is in its place, about very FE matters, about like interpersonal relationships and emotions and that kind of thing.
So I put Hecate, who is the god of magic, mystery, the unknown, and revenge. Well, she's actually not the goddess of revenge, but apparently there's two people or gods that she had a grudge on, and she turned them into animals, so she's always like accompanied by two animals. I just feel like NI is definitely mystic. And it would just be, this is my only like non-SI match. It was kind of like a subconscious NI match. It's like, Hecate, INFJ, yeah, it works.
No,
don't question it.
No, that actually really does work. ENFJ. For ENFJ, I put Nike, who is the goddess of victory. It's very much like FE, positive focused, and kind of NI, like striving to bigger and better things. And also Nike apparently helped people kind of like achieve their goals and stuff, and gave them the strength to do it.
Good.
So it's such like an ENFJ, like inspiring others and like trying to help others out to see their goals through.
That's really good. I put Aphrodite. Some people might think Aphrodite is the SE dominant, but actually she can change appearance depending on who you are, which is like the most FE thing I've ever heard. And also like she like basically bribed someone into voting for her as the most beautiful goddess. And it's like, I don't
Yeah.
know, like Effie user needs like someone else to acknowledge that like she's like the most beautiful. Like why can't she just be beautiful and not win this competition? I don't know. So yeah, it was really Effie SE to me.
Yeah, I feel like trying to convince someone that she's the most beautiful thing, that like just the process of convincing someone is very like FE. ENFP. For ENFP, I put Apollo.
Yes.
Yay! Okay, yeah, that was such an obvious choice, so I'm glad we got that one. Apollo is like the god of like music and poetry and archery and many things.
Yep.
So I felt like that many thing was like so NE. And just generally, I guess he's described as like this very young and lively kind of spirited guy, and that feels like very FP to me.
He's also like kind of the god of the sun, so just radiant ENFPs. Oh, oh shoot, you said all the positives, but there was one negative, which is that apparently Apollo has a hard time taking criticism, and I feel like that's pretty high FI to be like a little sensitive in that area.
Oh yeah, that's so funny. I was like laughing when you said INFP for Hades, but for INFP I put Poseidon because apparently he's all like moody and stuff. So I felt like moody is like introversion and like high FI, but then apparently he's also the god of like fertility. So I felt like that is like NE creation powers.
For INFP?
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Oh, we're at INFP. Okay, so this is when I was like, no, none of these. So I found a god called Morpheus, and I was like, oh, it's a Morpheus in the Matrix. So apparently that's the god of dreams, and what Morpheus likes to do is to communicate God's secret messages to mortals through their dreams. And I was like, oh, now I know why the Matrix dude is called Morpheus. And also, I feel like INFPs want to express themselves in like a special medium. And what's a more special medium than a dream? I feel like maybe the FI values like sharing all the knowledge. All of this knowledge should not be confined to gods. It should be spread to everyone.
ENTP. For ENTP, I put Hermes, who is like the messenger god. Communication, and also he was a god with many varied interests. So varied interests is like very NE, and communication is kind of very FE. And also he's kind of like the troublemaker archetype. Right. So I kind of associate that with like ENTPs stirring things up just for the sake of it.
Oh, I definitely thought Hermes. But then like I saw Janus, and I was like, no, I need to change it to Janus, who's the god of new beginnings, choices, and open doorways. So Janus is said to have two heads, which also reminds me of Gemini, which is also ENTP in my book. So a lot of times Janus will argue with itself. When I'm like, okay, who's the best type to play devil's advocate with themselves? It's the ENTP. Apparently it's a bit of a trickster. Like it likes to open these doorways. It forces you to open doorways that lead to oblivion. But then if you choose the wrong doorway, you're not allowed to change your mind, which is very like an ETI to me. Like, no, you've chosen, like, you're stuck with it for life. Ha ha ha.
INTP. Yeah, okay, so this was the INTP. For some reason, none of them on that list seemed very INTP for me. So I put Hecate, which is the one that you put for INFJ. So I think it's a goddess of magic, sorcery, and witchcraft. And my rationale was that to me, TI and NE seems like magic, sorcery, and witchcraft. It's just like the functions that I like wish I could have but don't, and it seems very magical to me.
For INTP, I put Prometheus, who is the god of forethought. Prometheus is known for stealing fire and sharing it with humanity, and thus being punished, like push that boulder off like many times or something. I feel like valuing progress and civilization is just like a really TIFE thing to do. He's also the god of progress though, so I feel like that's very TINE inventive, like yeah.
ISTJ. For ISTJ, I put Athena. So she's the goddess of wisdom, war strategy, and justice. So I feel like wisdom is just very SI, like just knowing a lot about many different subjects and remembering it all. And war strategy, again, is very TE. And the justice, I feel, is kind of like combination of like TE and FI, like FI knowing what is right, and like TE executing that externally.
Okay, so for ISTJ, I put Nemesis because ISTJ is kind of like reverse INFP, and I feel like Nemesis basically like doles things out in order that everything is just. I feel like it's very FI and TE to like be very harsh. Like, yeah, I don't think the INFP would be like so harsh at delivering justice. But the ISTJ would be like, well, you did this tiny thing way in the past, which is SI, and now you will like face the consequences now. And this is like FI fair.
ESTJ. For ESTJ, I said Zeus.
Yes! I was not expecting this at all.
It's like the main kind of god, I think, but it's also like god of sky and thunder. He is just very like TE action oriented, I think. He just thinks that he has to do something and he just goes and does it very bluntly and very forcefully. But he's also considered wise and just and prudent. So I feel like this is kind of like SI things, and I guess the just is kind of like FI. But then he's also unpredictable, so I feel like that's a tertiary NE coming out.
ESTJ and ENTJ, I was like, one is going to get Aries, one is going to get Zeus, and I feel like Aries has SE power with warfare, and Zeus, because of his position as king of the gods, has SI power, like of hierarchy, right? And I also read that Zeus is like super powerful, but his only actual job is to control the weather, which is like a really SI specialization. But then he does a bunch of like raunchy things in his spare time, which I think of as like tertiary NE. Oh, right. So the other thing was that like he's apparently called the arbiter of justice, but I feel like he doles out justice in a very blunt way, which is like inferior FI.
Yeah.
Smite people, yeah, exactly.
Lightning bolt. ISFJ. For ISFJ, I put Demeter. She is the goddess of the harvest, and she's
I put Demeter.
Yeah, because that one was so obvious to me. She's kind of like the motherly, nurturing archetype, and I feel like that's the kind of ISFJ archetype.
Trivia, she still has like a grudge against Hades for stealing her daughter Persephone. So I feel like having this grudge is very like SI, FE. But yeah, in general, agriculture, food supply, very like FE, like the giver.
Although having a grudge for stealing your daughter, I think, is like totally fair.
That's true.
ESFJ. For ESFJ, I put Hera.
So me too. Okay, this is great. See, I told you.
Yeah, so Hera is the goddess of women and marriage. She's kind of like the matriarch of the whole goddess world, right? So I feel like, ESFJ is like the most common type for women. Yeah, and also she's very extroverted, very powerful energy, right? So I thought of more ESFJ rather than ISFJ for her.
Marriage, mothers, and families. Like, all three is extroverted, because all three involves other people. You can just be agriculture by yourself. So, like, marriage, mothers, families is all extroversion, all, like, social structure. Fun fact, she is not very kind towards demigods. I feel like that's a very SI thing. It's just, like some people don't like other people.
All right. Moving on to ISTP. I put Hephaestus. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Okay, yeah, I almost put that.
Okay, so he's the god of metalworking and fire. Metalworking, it's kind of like an introverted pursuit, but it's also very SE based, very kind of hands-on skills, and yeah, usually like ISTPs with their TI-SE combo are quite good at like physical work like that.
Based on the stereotypes of ISTP, that's just like the
obvious
I would have chosen that, but then I just thought Athena was actually so perfect, because the description that I read was wisdom, war, and useful arts. I didn't know that she was the goddess of useful arts. Apparently she likes useful inventions that you can like have everyday practicality, which is very like TI-SE. And the wisdom just makes me think of TI, because you have to have the depth and systematic knowledge. But then she's also the goddess of war, so I'm like, okay, that's like the ninja, like ISTP ninja stereotype.
Yeah, right. Okay, also I just want to say that Hephaestus was also known for creativity and like sculptures and like that, things like that. So I feel like that's a very SE type of like creativity.
Oh, apparently Athena also has like a bad temper, which I also associate with like low FE, just maybe like have an outburst of that sometimes.
ESTP. For ESTP, I put
so
Aries.
Excited. Oh.
Yeah, I feel like an SE Dom is very action-oriented, very opportunistic and responsive and physical, all these things that would make you good at like war. TI is also kind of like learning skills and stuff that would be useful in war, like learning how to sword fight or whatever. It would probably be like a TI thing.
I put Dionysus because as soon as I thought of Dionysus, the god of wine and parties. As soon as I saw that, I was like, it must be ESTP. Like, there's just, I know some ESTPs and they're like wine and parties, so I just couldn't like not put that one. Wine is SE and parties is FE. It's like,
right, yeah. ISFP. So, we were kind of-ish close, but not really. For ISFP, I put Aphrodite. Oh, no, never mind. You put that for ENFJ. Okay, we were
really far away.
We were worlds
really
apart.
Never mind.
So Aphrodite is the goddess of love, beauty, and pleasure. Just like beauty and pleasure is very kind of like sensual or aesthetic kind of SE things. Being this object of beauty maybe is this very kind of like FI, like internalized kind of thing, like receptive, and I don't know.
Okay. I know, I'm so proud of my ISFP association. And also, it's so close to yours because same kind of functions. I put Artemis, which you put for INTJ.
Oh,
it's like a reverse INTJ. So Artemis, moon. Goddess of moon and hunting and maidens. So what she likes to do is like if any hunters or men hit on her, like she kills them basically. I'm like, oh, that's such a strong FI values. And also like the killing them part is very like SE forcefulness, and hunting requires a lot of SE as well.
Nice. But hearing that tidbit just makes me think of Artemis even more as an INTJ, because that sounds like me. If anyone like hits on me, I'm just like, no. Okay, last one. ESFP. So for ESFP, I put Janice, and I feel like we had the same kind of thing with Gemini, where you put ENTP for Gemini, and I put ESFP for Gemini.
Oh my gosh.
So it's the same weird association.
And Gemini is Janice.
Yeah. SE has this kind of opportunistic quality where they can just like see real things in real time and seize the moment, and that's very much like initiating new beginnings. And just generally, I feel like the ESFP has this kind of like positivity and enthusiasm that probably would inspire them just to kind of take these new beginnings.
Okay, so I put Poseidon, so I was really surprised that you put for INFP because Poseidon is one of the most powerful gods. Number 1 is Poseidon, number 2 is Zeus. And Poseidon basically controls all the oceans, and there's so much force in oceans, which makes me think of SE. When Poseidon feels like it like makes a typhoon or tsunami or whatever, which I think of as like high SE, and low NI because the consequences of a typhoon is huge.
Well, I'm glad he still thought he was an FP. It's kind of
similar. Definitely no FE user would make a typhoon.
Yeah, so let us know what you think of our matches. Did you like the one that we matched for your type? And just generally, would you match some of these gods that we talked about as the same types or different types? Yeah, let us know.
Right, and this is the time that we got 4 matches, which is actually a high score for the 2 of us.
Yeah, that's a record. Oh my gosh, that's pretty exciting. And yeah, so keep letting us know if there's any other ideas you guys want us to do for these MBTI happy hours, because yeah, you guys came up with a lot of good ones and we will do them. So thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy our content, please consider pledging your support on Patreon. And we'll see you next time.
Bye!